Hello and welcome back to the MacGuffin Tapes. I'm your host and retired archer, Michael, and I'm joined here by an admirer of the blade and co-host, Alla.
A retired swordswoman after one after one session. I think those are some truth drops here. I have never heard anything about archery from you.
Yeah, didn't I mention? I don't know. Sometimes I forget to. I had so many past lives, so
Okay, yeah,
no, but
makes
I
sense.
did. I did do archery for like 3 years, 4 years with my brother. Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Okay.
So.
This is new information to me.
Mhm. It's a very cool sport, and I always told myself when I stopped doing it that I will get back to it when I'm old, when I'm like retired.
So
Like,
like around now. For context, it was your birthday yesterday.
yeah, that's true. And just the day before that, I got to see the movie we're going to talk about today. Maybe you've guessed it from my intro. We're going to talk about the Odyssey, like we promised in our last show, the latest Christopher Nolan movie. I wanted to start off with a little story of my own that for me it was well, it wasn't like an odyssey to get to the cinema, but I had a little journey to the cinema because I actually missed my train connection to get to the cinema, and then I was stressed out, and then I just made it in time. Like the well, actually the ads were had already played, so I got there just in time, but the cinema was packed and I got to see it in IMAX, which I wanted to. I mean, it's not the real IMAX that we have here in Switzerland, but it's a big enough screen. And yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. That has it been a week since the Odyssey got released here in Switzerland?
I think
About,
about it was 17th of July.
but I don't know if you noticed, but at least I tried to book it for last week, and at least the IMAX cinemas were sold
Yep.
out. Like
Yep. That is
every
true.
single seat.
Hmm.
I was very surprised.
Yeah, that usually definitely doesn't happen here. I
No,
never really see sold out cinemas here in Switzerland.
and it has been going on like through this week and this weekend as well, I think. So yeah, that's why I decided to look up the stats for the movie, like how many tickets were sold here in Switzerland. And as of now, I'm looking this up here on Pro Cinema, and it's 133,000 tickets.
Not bad.
But I just compared the Odyssey to Oppenheimer, which was released, I think, was it 2 years ago or three?
I think it was longer than 2 years ago, or
So 3 years. But Oppenheimer sold around 400,000 tickets through the whole time it played, and the Odyssey already sold almost, well, it's getting to 200, so I think it's going to do it even better than that. So yeah, surprised. I don't know
all
about
right,
you if that surprises you.
no comment. I made my point that I will have a complete cold open with you today. Yeah, I have not disclosed my opinion as of yet.
I'm super interested what you're going to say and discuss it with you. And if we have different opinions, I think that will be fun. But discussing it will be super fun for me. The other thing I wanted to mention about me going to the cinema is that, well, I usually don't like to romanticize the movie going experience. Like I'm fine with just watching a movie at home and prefer that in most instances. But it was pretty cool this time because to my left there were two young girls sitting, like maybe they were in high school, and I also noticed lots of young students in in the cinema because there is a school break now. And then I thought it was really interesting because this girl said that she preferred actually to watch longer movies and movies that aren't so edited and cut, where you could appreciate the story. And I was like,
What?
oh,
This
I
is
have
not a
hope now.
TikTok generation. What is going on?
Now my hope in the young generation is restored. Yeah. So that was really wholesome. Yeah.
So maybe the problem was us all along, not the shorts reels mentality that we say is a Gen Z problem. Maybe it's us that are too old to watch such long movies already.
I wanted to mention a couple of things of the production of this movie. One is that they filmed on location. Some of the locations are Morocco, Italy, Scotland, and Iceland. Greece as well, of course. And they had live sets, like the Trojan horse is like a live moving thing. And I don't know, I'm guessing it's not, but shots that we see where Odysseus' crew and then and Menelaus and the Greeks are inside the horse. That's probably another type of set, but they actually built that, and they were inside that with Christopher Nolan was also inside that horse. Uh, and the other thing, well, they actually built many things for this movie, but the other one I'll mention later. But one more I wanted to mention is that they built a blimp for the IMAX cameras, which is basically a case around the IMAX cameras, because we mentioned it in our last episode that they are very loud when the reel gets put through the cameras. So that's why they built this case around it, so that they could film dialogue, because Nolan wanted to film this entire movie in IMAX, and that's what they did. And they also built a set of mirrors, like a mirror system, so that the actors could maintain eye line with the camera, and then they could see another actor on the other side of the camera when they were performing, because the camera is so huge that the lens is shifted to one side. So that's why they have to build that mirror system. There are lots of videos on YouTube where Nolan and the crew is talking about that. Mostly the cast, but yeah, it's if you're interested in that, I can recommend looking for those videos. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, in our last episode, we mentioned that there were some criticisms going around on the internet, on social media, about the costumes and if they were historically accurate. Well, it turns out that that was just like a very small part of the movie, or at least the costume that is or was featured prominently in the ads and in the trailers was Agamemnon's costume, the big black one, which looks like a, I don't know, like a cyborg, or people compared it to the Batman costume, I think, as well.
Mm.
And that was actually just used, or it was used for a narrative purpose. I guess we'll get to that, but yeah, just to portray that Agamemnon is the king and has like a presence. But the other costumes looked all right to me. What did you think about it?
I think the problem that people have with the costumes in general and specifically the armor is a bit bigger, so it goes beyond Agamemnon. And I would say, first of all, people criticize that everything is so dull, like the colors in the
Mhm.
story are very dull. And the second thing is that, yeah, historically inaccurate, slash, it doesn't look like, I mean, I don't really know what people base their opinion on when they say historically inaccurate. So I don't know if I can speak to that, but that again, it there is a connection between how it looked or how people imagine it looked, plus some color that is missing. So I think it had some like red elements, and it was like not everything is not as gray or was not as gray as it is in this movie. No comment. That's just what apparently people are saying.
I don't like talking about the opinions usually, because it's well, it's a bit unclear who said what, and it's all a big noise. But yeah,
I mean, I don't mind it, and I think usually I can relate to the opinions, or I can at least see the point. I think there was just a lot of discussion and debate, um, especially about casting. I think there was a lot of discussion. For me personally, after having seen this movie, it has absolutely no basis. And I think even before having seen this movie, I could say I don't agree with whatever people were saying about the casting choices. But yeah, we'll probably get to that later.
I always skip those kind of comments about cast because it's usually something to do with race or something along
Hmm.
those lines. And
Yeah,
I'm
or
just gonna,
minority representation. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's why I usually don't read those comments at all. And I just watch the movie first,
Hmm.
and get my impression on how the characters are portrayed or
Yeah.
how the actors do their job. Yeah. Before we discuss get fully into the movie, I wanted to talk a bit about the structure in the sense that the story is told from different perspectives. In preparation for this podcast, I listened to another podcast which I really like. It's called The Cinephiles, and there they were talking about an idea that Nolan talked about. It's that how stories are not linear. Uh, I mean, how he tells stories, but in general, how we get informed about stories, that we get different pieces of information that get added to the puzzle. And you can also apply that to, I think the example was news, that, well, we read one source and like one thing that happened in that story, and then we hear from the other side and so forth. So yeah, that's and they fit in during different parts of that chronology as well. So that's I thought that was really interesting and applies to this as well. So for me, the structure is the movie opens with the bard played by Travis Scott. And did you know Travis Scott? I mean, I'm not into rap, so
I'm not either. I know the name, but I don't know anything about the guy. And actually, I did know that he was in the movie, or I did hear about this, but until you just mentioned it before we started recording, I thought I didn't think of it. So, no, I don't really know.
yeah, and he is actually also featured in the score. I mean, his opening words, he starts with some words. I think it's a man, a
Yeah,
trick.
but it's
There,
basically the beginning of the song about Odysseus, right?
yeah, exactly. So we get him and the oral tradition that this story is featured or based on. So we open with the bard, and then we hear from Odysseus from Eumaeus, who is played by John Leguizamo. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Who is also sort of a mentor to Telemachus. We get some filler or some backstory from Antinous, who is played by Rob Pattinson, the antagonist or one of the antagonists in the story. We also get some intimate details from Penelope, Odysseus' wife. Then we hear the story of Troy from Menelaus' perspective, played by John Bernthal. Then eventually we get to Calypso, played by,
Charlize Theron.
thank you, Charlize Theron, on the island where Odysseus was trapped for 7 years. And the last story we're told is, or the last perspective we get is from Odysseus himself, played by Matt Damon, when he's already returned home and talking to Penelope. So that's the structure that I could figure out. I've only seen the movie once, so maybe I'm off here on a few things, but yeah, that's how I would break it down.
Mm-hmm. As far as the structure, I think if you haven't heard our previous podcast, you can go back to that, um, where we were talking about other Nolan films, so his whole filmography, and I think it was definitely good that we kind of did a recap in preparation for this, just to, for ourselves before we saw this movie. Because I think a lot of what Odyssey is doing is already known to us from his previous films. Um, and especially when it comes um, to the structure, so the flashbacks, the structure of the story. Although it really, in the beginning, when we were talking last time, I think we were questioning how nonlinear can it really be? Because, I mean, the story looks quite straightforward, but definitely not. So it's not really, there was definitely space for the non-linear narrative, and I think it was done really well. It's not as confusing as some Nolan films, interestingly enough. I think it's more or less easy to follow, and I think also the storyline, so the generally speaking, when we talk about Odysseus, it's always about this very long return home, right? And this story is actually relevant for a lot of Nolan characters. Um, and I think the Odyssey has a connection to, I mean, at least Inception, which literally has the same idea. It's a man trying to return home to his children through different challenges. And for me, it definitely also, I mean, not only for me, but I think we haven't discussed this yet, and we probably will, has a direct connection to Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah, I think there is a direct connection to Oppenheimer. We'll get to that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, this is the theme of returning home is part of Nolan's filmography, but also of Matt Damon. I just saw a meme just before we started recording, and it was
Okay.
like, okay, Hollywood spent I don't know how many million of dollars to bring Matt Damon back home because he was in Saving Private Ryan. Then he was in what The Martian. I mean, all the movies where he is featured in.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah,
not all the movies, but probably.
no, but
I
yeah.
think it's just a very common storytelling theme. It shouldn't
Mm,
surprise us. I think returning home, I mean, a lot of our stories are based on, myth. And this is why myth always remains relevant. And this is why in 2026 we are watching a movie that is called The Odyssey. And, people go and so many people go and sell out, like the cinemas are sold out, yeah, I don't know. It's quite understandable because this is a very basic story in the sense of, a lot of stories are based on this story.
yeah, it's a very human story and experience that we all have, and maybe even now, even more so than like how old is the Homer tale? Like 2000, 3000
I
years old?
have no idea.
I
Let's
don't remember.
check. Let me see. The Odyssey, around 8th to 7th century BC. I mean, how old is that?
Yeah.
And yet, this is my point. So I think this is definitely was a big inspiration to Nolan in a lot of his other films. And not only probably, I mean, Interstellar is the same thing, it's
Hmm.
a man leaving, trying to save his planet and then trying to come back, right? So this is why I kind of see this, the Odyssey, as probably magnum opus of Christopher Nolan, because it kind of just combines a lot of things that he has been doing for probably most of his filmography, and not only the coming home part, but also some other things.
Returning home is one of my favorite themes, and I even have a playlist on Spotify, like coming home music, like soundtracks. So I think that feeling as well is I love that. But yeah, going back to the structure, I think you rightly pointed out that it's not as convoluted as something like Memento, and it's well, basically, I would say we have this present storyline which follows Telemachus. And then in between that, we get the inserts of flashbacks. Well, like I said, the different perspective telling us what happened. But yeah, it's not as confusing as Memento. What would be another one that's really
I would say
confusing?
Interstellar is pretty confusing.
Yeah,
I don't know, at least for me.
Tenet as well, but it's more the
Tenet's
idea.
off the charts confusing, yeah.
Just-
This is even more, I mean, it's definitely more confusing than Memento.
yeah, and I think yeah, the devices. What you were telling. Well, this is a theme that is part of Nolan's filmography and something that really interests him. And I'm wondering here for sure that the Odyssey influenced Nolan, and then now he brings that back. So he gets to apply
Hmm.
what he learned through all these years making these movies and using tools like nonlinear storytelling and flashbacks that also appear in the Odyssey, and bringing them back to do this story. Going through the plot a bit, I wanted to start by talking about the horse in the room first, the whole assault of Troy and Trojan War, just because I think it's not the main story. It's still very relevant to what happens here and the actions that they did there. But yeah, it's also not. Yeah, I think it's not the main story, and it was put in the trailers because it's maybe visually the most.
The most recognizable, probably.
Yeah, huh? But it's for me, it's not the main story.
I
I also,
think it is, I mean, it is not the main story, but it is the premise of what Odysseus is going through. So it's almost like flashbacks, as like PTSD flashbacks, because
yeah,
I mean, technically speaking, what he is
yeah,
going through is definitely that.
yes.
And I think it is just to create the understanding of why something is happening. And I mean, it does take the man 10 years to get home. And we hear multiple times that he doesn't want to get home, and that's why it takes him so long.
That's right. I think it's about 10 years that it takes him to get home, but actually the Trojan War, I think there's a line in the movie also took 10
Yep.
years.
So
Yeah.
it's 20 years. He is away for 20 years. The Trojan War takes 10 years, but then it also takes him 10 years to get back home. Yeah.
Mhm. And I also thought, well, starting with the Trojan War, I thought that I had is that you could actually, and I bet a lot of people did this, you could actually watch the Troy movie, I think it's 2004, with I don't remember the director, but well, with Brad Pitt in the Achilles role.
Uh, you will be surprised, but I have not seen any of those movies.
No, okay,
I have not seen them, and I must say, this is not necessarily my topic. I don't really jump on the chance to watch something on ancient history.
yeah.
Although, to be fair, I watch everything. But yeah, I've never seen this, and I've never seen this the one with Orlando Bloom that is also, I think, something on that topic.
Well,
Yeah,
Orlando
but
Bloom is in Troy. He plays
yeah, he
Paris.
is in
Yeah,
Troy, but I mean there's another movie yet.
that could be. Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you any of that.
but yeah, if you're interested in the whole Trojan War, you could watch Troy first and then come back, or however you want to do it. What do we see from, or what's the story about the Trojan War, or what stood out to you? I think we get the Bard tells us is the first one who tells us a bit about the war, and then the other major inputs we get is from Menelaus. What did you think about how the Trojan War was depicted, and mainly, I would say the well, the infiltration of the city.
I mean, I have no frame of reference, so I cannot be talking about how it was portrayed. Um, what I draw my opinion from is actually none of the storytelling parts. It is actually the part where Odysseus is talking about it in the very end. And that is all I'm gonna say for now.
Okay.
I don't know. Do we actually want to like share our opinion before we go
No,
in
no, no, no,
straight
no.
up, or
No, 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 no.
because I feel like I cannot. I would like to drag this along as long as I
Yeah,
can, but
yeah.
I feel like I cannot really talk about it openly without having said what I think. So
Please
I am just
try.
interested. I'm just interested in your opinion also. Your opinion of my opinion because
Okay.
I'm sure you had one. Whether you still have the same one, I don't know.
You have to control yourself and let's drag this
All
out
right.
until the end, and
Okay,
this will be our
let's try.
Odyssey. So maybe I can give. I had some thoughts about the Trojan War. Well, the first one, I thought the casting of Elliot Page as Sinon made sense. Sinon guards the Trojan horse until the Trojans arrive. I thought that casting made sense because he is not very tall and is depicted as sort of a bit frail and small. So that made sense that he is vulnerable when the guards get there. But I don't remember. Does he die there on the spot on the beach when the guards attack him?
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for spoilers, Michael. Maybe you should have prefaced this.
Well, we always assume you've seen the movie by this point, but I
Don't,
mean, yeah.
because I know people that don't see the
Okay,
movies before they hear what we have to say.
okay, that's why you're here to remind me to or or to scold me for
Yeah,
not.
that's all I'm here for, literally.
No, no.
Go on.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and then well, I mentioned that they build the set so that we see the actors from the inside of the horse and how they're struggling. And I don't know if we get an exact timeline, but from what I get, it's like many weeks that, or days at least, where they are inside that horse. And one line stood out is that I think Menelaus says, "Okay, we had to tolerate the smell of piss and shit inside the horse." And I thought, oh yeah, well, yeah, of course, if they are inside that horse for such a long time. Yeah, that was really interesting. And I mentioned for those scenes, Hoytema and Hoytema, the cinematographer, and Nolan were actually also inside the horse. I thought it was also very epic how they moved or they dragged the horse across the sand. And I think, well, that they actually built that, and it looks like they are actually pulling that gigantic structure. The infiltration is very interesting when the horse is already inside and they climb out of the horse and silently assassinate the guards and then rush. What's the what's the reference for the young gamers? Rush point B, or what's the? You see, I'm old.
What?
There's a
I don't know
song.
what you're
There's a
talking about. That's
song.
how old I am.
Okay, forget it. But yeah, they rush to the gates and then they start opening the gates, and Odysseus grabs the bow and starts shooting guards that are approaching. And throughout this whole, the score by Ludwig Göransson is rising, and it's mostly percussion, and it's an incredible crescendo of that percussion, and the beat is getting faster and faster. So I thought that was the tension from that scene was amazing. I also liked the lighting at night. From what I read, they used a red light to depict the natural lighting and the fire that they used. And yeah, then once the gate opens, all hell breaks loose. And yeah, the first image or the person standing in the center is Agamemnon. Where is it? I think it's Benny Safdie, right, who plays Agamemnon
Hmm.
with that gigantic armor, black armor, which reminded me a bit of Commodus in Gladiator, at least the colors. But yeah, the scene is impressive from the scale and like all the extras, like pulling the horse and as well as the archers and soldiers. So yeah, that was very immersive for me.
Cool.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, no, what I want to say here as well, before we go any further, is the concept of Zeus's law. That's what I want to talk about. Because this is
Yeah.
something that permeates through the whole story. Even when you think it doesn't matter, it's about it. I mean, we see it. First of all, we get told what exactly it means by Telemachus in Odysseus's home, where Telemachus and Penelope live, and now it is also being occupied by quite a number of guests who take advantage of Zeus's law because they cannot be thrown out. And Zeus's law basically means that whoever comes to your home, whoever is a guest in your home, should get basically the best treatment you can have because you never know when a god in disguise can visit you. And this is why nobody can really throw anybody out, ask anybody out politely, or any of that kind. And I think a lot of scenes that happen in the movie are also in violation of that. And this is a very important thread that goes through the whole film.
Yeah, that's great that you mentioned that. Yeah, because I agree, it's very central to the movie. Actually, the first theme of the movie is also called Zeus's Law, and it's about the hospitality. And I always wanted to say that it's a cultural thing that, well, at least in Italy, I guess in Greece as well, and other countries. In Argentina, we adopted it a little bit from Italy, from all the immigrants that came. It's similar that, well, it's sort of open house and everyone's welcome and you sit down and you eat. So it's interesting that something that persisted throughout time in some shape or form. At this point, I could also talk a bit about the music because, well, I mentioned that they built the cameras for the movie. And what Nolan told Ludwig Göransson, the composer of the score, is that he didn't want orchestra, which is featured in other sword and sandals type of movies. The most famous example of that in the last 20 years would be Gladiator. Older ones would be Ben-Hur is, I think, one of the most acclaimed movies. I did see Spartacus, which is also in that in that realm and directed by Kubrick. Yeah, Spartacus directed by Kubrick. But yeah, so Nolan didn't want any orchestra, and that's why Ludwig Göransson and his team they actually reconstructed some old instruments. One of them is called the aulos, which is like a flute with two pipes, and it sounds very oriental. And
These
yes,
guys are crazy. What? They just like build their own tools to make this movie.
I thought that's amazing, and yeah, apparently there are other artists who do this as well. But yeah, they reconstructed this flute from basically drawings because there weren't like any or instruments left in the world of that type, just basically drawings and
Wow.
sketches. The other one, I think that one does exist, is the lyra, which is sort of like a harp. You can pluck it
Hmm.
or strum it. And they also use like bronze percussion, which I mentioned they used in that scene in the Assault of Troy. And of course, Ludwig Göransson mixes in thin synthesizers. But yeah, the soundtrack is very oriental sounding, and are there is a theme, which is sort of not a theme, well, a theme, but also a motif, which is a sequence of four notes. One that relates to Odysseus and the sirens, and the other one is associated with Ithaca. And I guess if you've seen the movie, you all remember the strumming of the bow when Odysseus goes hunting, and that's, well, sort of the Ithaca motif. It reminded me a lot of the soundtrack of Gladiator, which was done by Hans Zimmer, and I love in like these types of movies or scores that have to do with mythology or ancient Greece, and I love the when you have these choirs of priestesses or something along those lines. I love that element of these scores. Another one is a show called Spartacus Blood and Sand, which was a bit after the movie 300, which also has a fantastic score. And then I don't know you as a gamer, if you know God of War.
I do know the game, but I'm a very exclusive gamer.
Yeah,
I play a very limited number of things, and
yeah.
this is not one of them.
But it also has an amazing epic soundtrack with a lot of yeah, like I said, the choir, like the Greek choir,
That
and
I do know though, yeah.
yeah, well, that's epic, yeah. And I've been listening a lot to the soundtrack of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated show, which also has a lot of like Oriental instruments and sounds very well. It's very experimental, so yeah, I love this. As usual, I love. I'm biased, but I love everything that Goranson does, and yeah, this one was great. What I found interesting, maybe this happened to you as well, watching the Odyssey is at some point I started feeling like Odysseus in, or how I started remembering things about this story.
You got
Because
very immersed, my friend. I not in any point did I wanna feel like Odysseus, to be honest. But go on.
not feeling like maybe I said it wrong. What I meant is that in how, as the audience, we get to see or reconstruct this story, right? Because we had to read. I think I read the Odyssey or for sure the Iliad when we were in high school, and then I at some point I think during uni I also read the Odyssey, and I was familiar with the story, but I couldn't remember all the exact all the trials that Odysseus had, like with
Mhm.
the Cyclops and the sheep and so forth. So I as I was watching along, I started remembering more and more details
Okay.
from that, and generally from mythology. I don't know. Did that
Yeah.
happen to you as
But
well?
well, we have different different starting points, I think, because I have never seen or read anything about Odysseus. I mean, I did know some of the trials, but the recognition came from, well, just generally knowing what it is, what it's going to be. So no, I didn't really have the same experience. I think largely because I haven't read it before.
Yeah, but I think that applies as well. What you said that because it's, I mean, I guess pop culture is the wrong term, because
Well, yeah,
this,
it's definitely part of general culture and
yeah,
general
exactly.
knowledge in a way.
So I feel like most viewers are going to know this the story in one shape or another.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many people really know that. Daria didn't know any of it, and I totally understand it. I mean, it's not really that necessary, I feel like.
But I would guess that the vast
All
majority, or
right.
maybe from a certain age
Mm-hmm.
onwards,
All right.
would know the story or are familiar with the story.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was funny for me as well. When I was watching, I remember there's a Simpson episode which is basically the Odyssey and Homer Homer
Well,
getting back.
the only way how I am familiar with the Odyssey is from where Brother, where art thou?
Yeah, there you go.
Because this is the Odyssey basically, right? I mean, loosely based, but
Mm,
some of the things like the sirens also repeat
hmm.
there.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. In some shape or form, we've been in contact with the story or of a retelling of the story.
Mm-hmm.
For me, this is very specific, I guess, to millennial and male millennials. Growing up, there were lots of games about mythology. We had
All
Age of
right.
Mythology. I don't know if you've
So it's
played that one.
basically the Roman Empire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Age
This
of
is the
Mythology.
boys.
What was, well, I mentioned God of War. And well, me personally, I read a lot of about the myths when I was a kid. So
That I did too, but I think I was more focused on Egyptian mythology back then.
yeah, for sure as well. Yeah, that's what I thought that maybe men my age and maybe even older are in some way familiar with the story, and that's why I like this structure because you start remembering as the movie goes along and the specific details. For example, the Cyclops in the cave. I thought that in the story, Odysseus talked to the Cyclops, or maybe it was another story where Odysseus did voices and confused the Cyclops, or maybe it was another tribe, so that they could get out of that cave. So that's one detail I remember. The other one was that actually happens in the movie is that the soldiers mix themselves in with the sheep by I don't know if in the story they tied themselves to the sheep, but what they did in the movie that they tied some grass to their bodies so that the Cyclops wouldn't feel the difference in touch between the two. Those are some of the details that I started remembering as I was seeing it unfold.
I have a lot of I have too many opinions on the Cyclops scene, but most of all, I will try to be a bit more objective because I don't want to give myself away, right? But this is one of those examples where we were mentioning Zeus's law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they come into the Cyclops' house, they assume that they will be treated like gods because they are visitors. And then it kind of turns out they are not necessarily. I don't know what you thought of that scene, but for me, the violence against the Cyclops is largely unprovoked. And I completely agreed with what he was doing. He was in his own house, also, to be fair. And after what happened in the Cyclops' cave, I thought those people brought it on themselves. I have no pity. I have no pity for those men.
So you were like a god, you were like Poseidon.
I was basically on Poseidon's side. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting that you mention is the Zeus law in this context. I hadn't thought of that. Who breaks the law for it? Is it the Cyclops or is it the soldiers? Because now I'm thinking that the Cyclops is who eats one of the soldiers first, but I
Yeah.
might be mistaken.
I mean, yes, but it's still a it's still trespassing, breaking and entering.
Yeah,
The
sure,
way
yeah.
I see it. Stand your ground and all, you know. But in any case, I don't know what exactly how it happens and how it unfolds. It can be possible that the people that get eaten or the person that gets eaten is attacks the Cyclops first before he gets eaten, right? In any case, I don't know, maybe like read your surroundings. Aren't you like warriors and stuff? Like if
Mm-hmm,
you see sacks of cheese hanging from like 7-story buildings height,
mm-hmm.
maybe get out of there. And to be fair, I don't remember what this character's name was, but
You mean the first or the second in command?
yeah, the second in command, Odysseus' second in command, yeah, exactly, who challenges his thoughts and plans. And so he is almost like voice of reason in a lot of situations, and he was saying, "Let's get out of here."
Mm-hmm.
And I think the majority of the crew were kind of saying, "Let's not stay here." And Odysseus was like, "Zeus's law." We're gonna stay here. Nothing's gonna happen. And I mean, Odysseus is making all of the worst decisions in the history of like being in command, I feel like. And this is the only the first one out of a host of those. But in any case, I felt no sympathy for these people. I just thought
Hmm.
the poor guy didn't do anything. He is a little introvert.
Hmm.
He has his own island. He hangs out with his sheep in his cave. Leave the guy alone. But they didn't want to, so they got what was coming, you know?
I think your reaction is exactly how we're supposed to feel, or how maybe how
I
Nolan
don't know because I think in the original story, again, as you mentioned, Odysseus is portrayed almost like this trickster character. He is very
Hmm.
cunning, and a lot of he finds a lot of ways to get out of a situation in very creative ways. So it's not always
Yep.
just brute force, right?
Yep.
Um, and in this story, I think in Nolan's portrayal of Odysseus, it's not really like that. This is
Hmm.
kind of almost taken away from him,
Hmm.
um, for the purpose of showing something else, I would say. So it's not copying the original story one to one, by far not. And this is just one of those examples, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Zeus's law in this context, that they are trespassing. Well, one interview I saw with Nolan is that he wanted people to have empathy for the Cyclops,
Ooh,
uh,
okay, interesting.
something he got from his friend Guillermo del Toro. Huh? Uh,
Okay.
yeah, maybe that's something in the design of the Cyclops. I guess it's for me, it's mostly his body posture. I mean, the Cyclops is played by Bill Irwin, who is an actor, and yeah, I think he has some background on in as a clown and comedian. He is the one who also played Jarvis, the sort of robot in Interstellar. He was inside that robot.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
yeah,
in
I mean that
Interstellar, that was not Jarvis. Just saying.
wasn't it.
No,
What's his name
Jarvis
again?
is the Iron Man AI. It's Tars
Tars. That's it, right? Thank you.
in
Yes,
Interstellar.
Interstellar is Tars. Yeah.
I actually also just I loved how the Cyclops was portrayed because
Hmm.
it's almost like this uncanny creature that's there's nothing really scary. If you just look at, how it's made, there's nothing really scary about it. But the way that it all comes together makes it very unsettling. So
Hmm.
he is large, but I think his movements are almost slowed down. So he's not very fast, he's not very dexterous. And the music and the sound, this all makes it very uncanny. And I really loved how that was portrayed.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for me, in some sense, he is like, maybe this is a wrong comparison, but like an animal that is sort of innocent, and but at the same time, if it's attacked, it reacts. So I think that the horrifying thing is because of the circumstances that, well, the soldiers are afraid and then they attack the Cyclops. But yeah, I do agree with you that they start getting from bad to worse once one of the soldiers gets eaten, and which is when they start, well, blinding the
And I mean,
Cyclops. And
we also get to see this way of thinking once they mutilate the Cyclops, they realize that he can speak. And they could have talked to him all along, but they just never thought to. And this is
right,
this is horrifying to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great point, that they are so afraid, or well, they are actually blinded.
Yeah.
um
This is only the beginning, right? This is the beginning of the journey, and this is almost like right after Troy, right? This is
mhm.
while the crew is still all intact, not right after they meet the Cyclops, not so much anymore, but what is next?
The point that you said already is, well, this is different from the original story. That there's this empathy and what you said that, well,
Mhm.
actually, we can see as an audience how Odysseus and his crew are in the wrong. I think that's what's the difference between the original story and what's changed. And I think that they
Mhm.
had it's a great change. Yeah?
Mhm.
I don't know if the next story is actually the
Okay.
Lesrigonians,
Okay.
who are these, well, giants, apparently man-eating giants with this silver armor, which is
I
maybe
think
also,
this got a lot of heat, the armor
yeah.
of these giants. That it was like too kind of cheaply executed. No thoughts. I have nothing to say about that.
For me, looking back at it, I think it's actually not, it does make sense because, well, the Odyssey is a fantastical mythological story. And on the other hand, the Greek civilization was also very advanced as compared to other cultures. So that armor makes sense for me in that context. And I mean, still nowadays we have some retellings of Greek mythological stories or some adaptation, or even a good example is the Atlanteans, which are also around those times, which are also portrayed as a very advanced civilization. And then in that context, it would make sense to me that they have this very, yeah, almost like science fiction type like of armor. So I didn't mind that.
Hmm.
What I thought was interesting as well visually is how we see that the trees come closer together. So it's like a maze as well when they are
Hmm.
in there. So they're completely out of their element when they arrive on that island.
But I think, speaking like story-wise, the the scene with the giants, to me personally, doesn't bring any like load, basically anything anymore, because there are other characters and other situations that they find themselves in that are more load bearing than the giants,
Yeah.
because the giants almost serve like just for the purpose of removing more of Odysseus's crew from the picture.
Exactly, because after that they lose the two smaller ships. But I guess the other thing that left me from that scene is maybe the fear that the soldiers have when they are attacked, and that it's like, well, they're feeling like shit after that attack and losing a lot of their crew. But I could see like cutting that scene, or I don't know. It's not that central to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, now that I said it, I could imagine that it would not make much difference if it was not there. But I mean, I don't mind it.
Hmm. Maybe here I can bring in one other detail is that the main ship, the big ship that Odysseus is on, is actually a real ship, a reconstruction from a Norwegian team. It's actually a Norwegian ship, not a Greek ship, but they well modified it a bit, the exterior so that it looks like a Greek ship. Well, actually, the crew of that Norwegian ship was in the movie, part of the crew, and they actually steered the ship to the different locations that they filmed at. So the again,
Did the internet haters not get to that point?
yeah.
I
I
would
mean,
expect people would be hating on it being a Norwegian ship by now and not a Greek ship. But I have not heard about that yet.
yeah. I don't know enough about ships, but one detail that I thought was interesting, the sail is like a big. What's the shape? Not a square, but
Yeah, like a triangle, no?
yeah, and I immediately associated that a bit more with like Nordic ships,
Mm,
but I didn't have a reference for Greek ships how they were at that time.
hmm.
So maybe they're still close
Yeah.
enough. But that's one detail that stood out to me. We can get to the next big story, and I think the one that you have to adapt if you adapt the Odyssey is Circe's Island.
Hmm.
I thought that this was really interesting. First of all, it's completely different locations. This is either Scotland. I think this is probably Scotland. So I like the green and that contrast a lot, and those ruins. This particularly reminded me a lot of the eighth Star Wars movie, the newer ones,
Can't relate.
because
Don't ask me. And also don't tell me anything about it.
no, because there's this one scene where Ray looks for Luke, and Luke is on this island, and I think that was shot, if not in the same location, but somewhere around it. So it's very similar looking, and I might come back to this, but yeah, growing up, Star Wars was a huge influence for Nolan. Like he watched it 7 times apparently when he was a kid, and at least the location work reminded me a lot of Star Wars and how magical this world is. But the other aspect that I liked about the Cersei story was, well, for one, how the soldiers are turned. That was really, really interesting that Cersei sculpts the pigs out of the,
Hmm.
yeah, out of the soldiers.
Hmm.
That I really liked. I also liked that line when she turns them back. Well, the way it's phrased, it's somehow that the original form is the pig form.
Yeah. And I think this is also the sculpting, as you call it, is exactly giving the right idea, is that the material has to be there for it to turn out, right? So I think that that is definitely Cersei's opinion. Also, we get to kind of hear her opinion on the men in general, and she is expecting violence towards her, right? This is almost like preemptive violence that she executes on them because she knows that probably she would be in a bad situation if she were to, well, not do, like, let them do whatever they wanted to do and not protect herself.
Yeah, and exactly. And the way that you felt, I mean, your reaction about the Cyclops scene and the interaction between the soldiers and the Cyclops, I had that reaction for this scenes. Uh, um, well, because I could put myself more in the shoes of Cersei, like she being a woman, living alone on this
Hmm.
island, and then the soldiers come and basically invade you. I also felt that I think there's an island in between that they also invade, where it's not just one woman, but it's, I don't know, a tribe. And there's this one guy talking, which sounds like speaking Greek, I
Hmm.
think. But yeah, but in Cersei's island and in that scene, I could put myself in the shoes of the people living there, and that they're well invaded, and well, you
Hmm.
expect in Cersei's island they don't attack, but in the other one, well, yeah, they plundered the island for food.
Well, yeah, I mean, I cannot really give a specific opinion, and I don't think there's a difference between how the Cyclops reacts to how Cersei reacts. Like, if you look at the basis of it, it's more or less the same. Of course, Cersei being a woman, expecting violence from men that come to her, like she is only alone there, and if a bunch of men come to her island, she feels threatened. It definitely has merit. Whether it still allows her to do what she did, I mean, I don't think it justifies it necessarily. They didn't do anything. Maybe they wouldn't. They were looking for food. Like, we cannot really say that it is certain that they would, well, do any violence to her. But this is also what kind of what Odysseus is, well, trying to call to voice of reason when he is talking to her. Yeah, well, reason with her, and he says they are only trying to get home. They only want to get home. What I also want to say, though, is something we haven't talked about yet, but something we mentioned in the previous podcast is the role of women in
Mhm.
Nolan's work.
Yep.
and that so far women were reduced to very very obvious tropes of dead wives and all that. I think this is probably the first film where women actually get assigned a more important role and a more relatable role. So
Hmm.
they are still women that live in a world built by men and ruled by men, but at least what you get from the story, or what changes in the Odyssey by Nolan versus the original, shows me that there was thought put into the role of men and the role of women in the world, and how those things probably developed since, well, 7th or 8th century BC, as we found out. And I think we maybe will talk about it more when we get to Penelope, but also
Yep.
Cersei's part,
Hmm.
I think, got changed. I'm not sure how, though, because I don't know how it was in the original.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I have this written down as one of my questions. But yeah, 100% I agree with you said with Cersei, and I thought it was a smart way how he approached it and how, like you said it, that it's from the perspective of the men's world, right? And that's how he found his way into the female characters. Well, I thought I had a lot of, like I said, a lot of empathy for Cersei, and I thought the last dialogue between her and Odysseus was great, and I could really put myself into her shoes. And
Hmm.
yeah, I thought that was great. And I also liked in that scene, we can see a bit of, well, maybe Odysseus isn't as cunning or creative as in the original tale, or a trickster. For me, Odysseus in this story is a bit more like he's a bit more pragmatic, down to earth. He is maybe also an atheist compared to a non-believer, at least, compared to his crew.
I mean, I wouldn't say he's an atheist. He still sees Athena all the time and talks to her. I mean, his version of Athena, but in any case, I wouldn't necessarily say he is an atheist. He
Yeah,
is
yeah.
aware of all the gods, and I think this also is the gods being talked about a lot and referenced a lot, and being not necessarily portrayed, but some of the action that is happening is like they are being portrayed through the action, through how they influence the world, through some violence by nature, right? So like
Mhm.
the sea is very violent, and some of the other things that happen to them is brought on by the gods, but they're not necessarily shown. So I wouldn't
Yep.
say, I think Odysseus is very much aware of the gods. So but
Hmm.
he is just maybe not as scared, or not as yeah, I don't know. Pragmatic is a good word in any case for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean he is smart, but maybe I would put it more like in a she's like a modern man, maybe in that an ancient world. He is not. What's a good example of a cunning, creative character? Well, I all the examples I have are from anime right now. If you have watched that, Death Note, or like these. Tricksters or people who machinate behind the scenes, or like in the original story, it feels to me a bit more like that. But in this
Hmm.
adaptation, yeah, like I said, maybe pragmatic, or he reasons his way through
I think
situations.
I think he just looks to me like a traumatized, very tired man at this point. And what he
That as well,
wants
yeah.
is really just to like somehow get home,
Hmm.
and quite possibly with his crew, if it's possible, with his crew intact, but probably not having a lot of hope for that.
Yeah. And well, in the Cersei scene, at least I think he's observant that we can see, because he notices that the ring is in the fruit bowl or whatever it was.
Hmm.
And he also catches on the detail that the raven is
Hmm.
somehow related to Cersei.
Hmm.
So you can see his maybe, yeah, I guess in the original he was also witty, and maybe in this
Hmm.
one I wouldn't call him witty, but yeah.
But in any case, if we go back to Cersei, I think
Hmm.
the reframing of Cersei is probably, I mean, I could assume that the violence made to, or done to these men on her part in the original story is probably less based on any logic or on any traumatic experience on her side. And here she is grounded in reality. She is given some personality. She is not a 2D character. You know that there is history behind her decision to turn men into animals and in her own words, to return them to their original state because they are pigs, they are animals, you know? Yeah, so I think this is definitely already a step up from what Nolan has been doing with his female characters up until now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yep, I could have said it
It's just
better.
I when I was watching this, I just thought this is female rage. This is the epitome of female rage is
Hmm.
Cersei in the Odyssey.
Hmm. One last detail I wanted to mention is I really liked the way that the soldiers eat when they start eating and the food getting sucked into their mouths. I think that is
Hmm.
actually was more disgusting than Cersei turning them into pigs. So I thought that was a great
Hmm.
detail visually.
I think, I mean, there are some other things that they encounter in their travels, but I think we can skip some of those and get to one of the more important ones yet again, it being
Calypso?
Calypso.
Yeah, I agree. No, you what I had also written down is what you said, the elements. You basically said what I wanted to say, that the gods in this movie are not shown as divinities, but as actual
Forces of nature or so.
forces of nature. Yeah, and I could totally relate when they're at sea and almost drowning in the storms, and
This was
uh,
terrifying. This was
that is
the
terrifying. And
scariest thing. I hate this stuff. I
yeah,
hate this sea stuff, and then it this just really scared me.
I mean, I have a cousin who is sailing around the world, and he vlogs his whole trip, and sometimes he shares footage of the storm. And
Oh my God. I would not want to know.
fortunately, there have only been like two instances in over 4 years they've been sailing where it was really bad. But yeah, the sea can be super scary. Yeah, for sure. Talking about the gods, I mean, here in the movie, I think the big three appear. It's Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. And in the original
Well,
story,
Athena.
well, I mean, the big three in, I think,
Yeah. I know what you
in,
mean,
yeah.
but I mean also others appear too.
Yeah, for sure. But
Well, we don't necessarily see them, right? They are not portrayed, but
mhm,
they are there.
yeah,
They are implied, let's say.
because those usually are the ones that appear in every adaptation. And I mentioned the God of War soundtrack, and those three were in there, even in the score. Yeah, so yeah, let's move on to Calliope. Sorry, not Calliope. I mixed it up again. It's Calypso.
Calypso.
Calypso. Calliope is another character.
Yeah, so Calypso is a nymph, I believe. She's not a god, but she is kind of a god adjacent creature in the mythology. And she has an island. She lives on an island. Odysseus finds himself on this island. I think he is already by that time completely alone. All of his crew is gone. The story goes, basically, that he stays on this island with her for 7 years. He spent 7 years with her. She initially tries to save him and to kind of bring him back to his, to some health. And she falls in love with him and eventually, almost in the original story, keeps him hostage on her island. He is almost always in kind of a daze, lotus induced. And I don't again know how it is different from the original, but I think in any case, in this story by Nolan, Calypso is portrayed almost also as a sympathetic character. So she's not necessarily a person that holds him hostage against his will, but she is taking care of him. He is not right in, well, he's not mentally okay. He is not physically okay. And it takes time for him to get back to his, well, his normal self. Of course, a lot of it comes from probably the drugging, more or less, as you can call it. But she knows that he always thinks of his previous life. He is drawn to it. He wants to go back. He is drawn to his wife that he is maybe not consciously aware of yet, but she knows that he will be at some point because he thinks of her. He is restless and he wants to leave. And eventually she opens up and tells him everything she knows and lets him go.
I was thinking there was a great line in there when an exchange between Calliope and Odysseus in something like remembering happy moments, but if they don't hurt, they weren't happy or something along those lines, which I thought was really nice, but I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact
All
line.
right, I don't
But it
remember
was
this.
an interesting thought or line. If I remember correctly, Calliope also falls in love with
It's
him. It's not
Calypso.
love. Again, I said it again.
Come on.
Calypso. It's not a love at first sight, but it's something that evolves, if I'm not mistaken.
You mean in the movie or in
Yeah,
the
in the movie, in the movie.
I mean, I don't know. I don't, we're not really shown any romantic moments between them. I think it's just
No.
implied that they, well, they have been living there together for so many years and there is kind of love, at least on her part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that well, she cares for him and she falls in love with that, like or she wants to take care of him and is sympathetic for him. Yeah, I don't know if it Charlize Theron's portrayal or maybe how she's written, but I think the other aspect might be that these scenes are a bit more interwoven, or it's not that we get to see that story in one what's it called? Like at
Not in
once
one sequence, yeah.
in one sequence. Yeah, it's a bit more intercut, so that might be why I didn't connect as much. But I did get what you mentioned that there was a love there from her, and yeah, I don't know. I
No, I
didn't have
agree
like
with
a
you. I
yeah.
agree with you.
What was the moment? Do you remember what the reason was why Calypso Calypso
Good job.
lets him go? What was like the turning point?
I don't remember what the turning point was, but I think it's just his consciousness coming back more and more and him questioning what he is doing and he always collects kind of the remnants of his raft that he used to get there, like the remnants of the ship, right? From the shipwreck. And this basically shows that he is aware of his mission. He is still, it's still somewhere, even if he doesn't remember, even if he it doesn't connect to it yet. She knows that he will figure it out eventually. And I guess either he starts questioning it more and more, or she opens up, or it's kind of both at the same time. But I can't clock like what exactly it was.
I have a theory on interpretation on that, but I guess we'll get to that a bit later. Because, well, I guess now after that, it's when Odysseus goes back to Ithaca, right? That's like the last stretch of the story and him claiming back his home and throne.
Mom, just a moment. Something that we
Hmm.
have not mentioned actually before, kind of between Calypso and where we were before, the the shipwreck. They go to hell.
Yeah.
And this is also what I want to talk about.
I thought that, well, it's mostly exposition from this part. What I read about it is, I actually was thinking about that when I was seeing it. It was really cool how they did that when the, let's call them, no, it's actually ghosts, but the zombies crawl out of the earth, and it was actually the actors buried in that Icelandic soil, and they had some sort of like a snorkel to breathe, and a person who was watching over them so that there weren't any, yeah, checking on them if they were could still breathe, for safety reasons. Yeah, that was really well done visually. But yeah, for me mostly it's position and what Odysseus needs to know, how he needs to set up before he gets home.
Hmm.
What did you want to say about it?
I have a lot to say. I have a lot to
Okay.
say. I really wonder if you think I will say something good or something bad.
Your tone makes me think it's a bit critical, but let's see.
Yeah, I just think when I watched or after I've seen the movie, I thought Michael will definitely have a preconception, like with some idea of whether I liked it or not. And I kind of almost, I'm certain that I know which one is going to be. And now let's see. So they get to hell. To travel to hell, I think they also have to go through some things to actually get there. And the scenery is very epic. It's very impressive how it's done. I think, yeah, it is. It must be in Iceland. And then we meet a few characters, right? We get to meet a few characters, but actually there are a lot of, well, ghosts, let's call them ghosts that appear on this coast, right? What they have to do is make a sacrifice. They make a sacrifice, the ghosts come, and they, before they speak, they have to like drink the blood, right? And that once they drink the blood, they can speak. I thought that was the most epic thing I've ever seen. This was very impressive to me. I just think the kind of the world building that this involves. This is a very simple thing. Like you, it's not really anything technically difficult or that it probably needs a lot of planning, but this very simple thing already creates such an atmosphere. You know, just this gesture of them kind of putting the blood on their lips and being allowed to speak almost. I thought that was just great. And we get to talk to two characters, or they get to talk to two characters, which is Sinon and Agamemnon. And we almost in flashbacks, or I think, well, in flashbacks, get to see how their life ended because they have not reached home yet. So they don't know that Agamemnon is dead and they don't know the circumstances of his death. And this was also, I mean, very interesting to see and how it was done. And I think this was probably the most colorful that the movie allowed itself to be, is when Agamemnon
Yeah.
gets home and before he dies, and well, even his the circumstances of his death that they are shown are still shown in a very colorful way.
That jump scare got me bad
Which jump scare?
when is it, yeah, Helen, is it
No, not
Helen?
Helen. It's
Well, the
her twin
Clytemnestra,
sister. Yeah.
yeah, jumps on his throat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And even that, I appreciate that there is a motivation that she has. It's not just her being evil, her not liking him or whatever. There is a motivation that is kind of woven into the story. It
yeah,
is just one little moment, one little flashback that nobody pays attention to, but it is important to show the motivation of the wife and kind of the story behind
yeah.
Agamemnon's death. I thought that was great.
That's actually part of the, origin. Well, I don't know if of the Odyssey, but it's part of the of Greek mythology, like Clytemnestra and how she kills Agamemnon. So that's
No, no, how she
yeah,
kills him, yeah. But is it part, does he have a motivation in the story? That I don't know.
yeah, she does. I think that she orchestrates the whole. Well, I don't. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know the motivation, but the orchestration, like the
She
machinations.
orchestrates
Yeah,
it with her lover, I think, in
yeah,
the
yeah.
original. What is
Hmm.
the reason for it? I don't know if it's in the original, but it is in the movie, which I like.
Hmm.
If it is in the original, kudos, great stuff. But I love that she is not just an evil woman doing
Yeah.
this out of spite for her husband. She actually has a very clear motivation for this.
Hmm.
And I mean, again, this is added points for women that are well or at least rounded characters
Well,
in this movie.
may I just quick side note because
Hmm.
we're talking of Clytemnestra, just add something about Helen, her sister,
Hmm.
because I like the detail that she was scarred. I think after Menelaus
Hmm.
returned, so
Hmm.
the most beautiful woman in like Greek mythology is scarred on her on one side.
Hmm.
That I thought that was interesting to see. And the other thing that I like is when Helen talks to Telemachus, and well, she tells the Telemachus that she says she's sorry for all the things that happened, and she should tell that to his mom. So those two things are details that I also really liked.
Hmm.
Let's go back to Hades.
I mean, this is actually mostly what I wanted to say, I think. And I also, Agamemnon being this very imposing character, he never speaks. We never hear him speak until we are in hell. And he is so soft spoken. I thought that was such an interesting dichotomy. You would never really imagine. He is, he doesn't talk like he has authority in this group. We never even need to hear him talk because his presence alone guides people. Like you almost get this feeling, right? He's almost like a mythical creature in this myth itself. Like he is not, his face is never shown. We only get a glimpse of his actual face in one scene at the very end, well, at the end of his own life. And in this scene he speaks, and I thought this was just great that they chose that and that they decided that's how he's going to be portrayed, because it's not like he speaks with authority. He is soft spoken, but almost it's almost again adds to the myth of him. What was it to him, and what was it to this person that made him so authoritative and so imposing for people to follow him? It must have been something else. Like this is just, yeah, interesting to think about.
Yeah, good point. I didn't pay attention to that, but the contrast between like his visual appearance, his armor, and how he speaks, I didn't catch up. I didn't catch that, but yeah, it's a great detail. Yeah.
And Sinon is quite an important character in this part as well, because we get a token that will accompany Odysseus to the very end of the story that is very important and that connects to another character. And I
Hmm.
think now would be the good time, if you please, to
Yeah.
go back to Ithaca.
Yeah, well, just briefly on Sinan, I mean, first, I was a bit surprised about the casting that Elliot Page got cast. I mean, a huge name got cast in what appeared like a small role, but it ties the whole story together, I think, and all the different perspectives. So I think it's actually a very important part in this story.
That's true. I also think like there is not a single character that is not a huge actor.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. Like there
Yeah.
are such tiny roles that are occupied by huge names. I
Hmm.
mean, John Bernthal appears for what, 30 seconds? I don't know. He's there for, or even Benny Safdie. This is the actual
Hmm.
example. Like he
Yeah.
is there. His face is not even shown. But it is Benny Safdie. It's not anybody else. So I'm not surprised.
Which is actually great that they don't show his face because, like we said at the beginning, he's not the main story. Huh?
Yeah, and again, it's just like carries this myth of him, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, that's great. Arriving back at Ithaca. Yeah, what can we say?
We should probably, again, we never really discussed the exposition. In the very beginning, we are exposed to Ithaca, and we get to see this kind of hall where the uninvited guests are residing and are constantly feasting at the expense of Penelope, and they are all courting her almost like they would like to marry her because Odysseus has been away for 20 years and now it is about time that she remarried and somebody wants to take the throne in Ithaca. First of all, to Penelope, I would like to say this is again a reframed, I think a reframed female character because Telemachus, the dynamic between Telemachus and Penelope is, I think, different from how it was in the original. In the original, Telemachus is kind of he wants to be the king. He wants to take the throne. He thinks he is worthy of it, and he doesn't. Let's say he doesn't respect his mother as a ruler, let's say. She's been on this throne for 20 years. And this is the scene where we get to hear her opinion, right? In the movie, there is a scene where she says, people are talking about the throne and that the throne has been empty for 20 years, but I was sitting on that throne. And so, again, this is a woman in in a position of power almost where she gets disregarded as a ruler, right? And there needs to be a man that rules. And it's either a new husband or it's Telemachus. And she doesn't perceive either option as viable. And first of all, she is still waiting for her husband. She loves her husband. I think it's great that, I mean, we get shown this woman who is faithful to her husband and is waiting for him for so many years, but also she perceives herself as, well, I have not been sitting here idle all this time. She is a wise woman, and we get to see that, I think. And in any case, the one contender for her hand that is a prominent character is played by Robert Pattinson. Do we want
Yeah.
to talk about, do you want to say something?
Something about Penelope, and yeah, and I totally agree that I like that it's I think this is also like the groundedness of the characters, right? That it makes total sense that with Odysseus being gone for 20 years, that well, actually, who has been ruling the kingdom is Penelope, and that from I don't have a specific story in mind now. Well, maybe I'm influenced a bit right now because I'm watching House of the Dragon, and then there we also have a queen. But there are many stories where women are just behind the scenes, like pulling all the strings and
Mhm.
organizing everything and ruling. And I mean, it makes total sense that reframing or well that she is actually the queen and she is been sitting on the throne. So that yeah, that makes total sense to me. And yeah, maybe this is a bit like Nolan sees his wife a bit in that role because I feel like maybe Emma Thomas, who is the producer of this movie and
Mhm.
all of Nolan's movie, I guess she has like a role similar to that, or like a very important role as
Yeah, in a
well.
way, I guess you could
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Not to reduce her work by any means.
No, no, on the contrary. Going to Rob Pattinson's characters, I mean, I think I love when he plays these kind of
That's exactly what I wanted to say. When he plays like a scheming coward, the
yeah.
best. That also kind of reminded me, and that's what I was expecting from this movie, is for him to be kind of a similar character in it's not really that similar, but like the vibe is similar to his character in The King with Timothy Chalamet, because it's also this almost like there are scenes where he's attempting to be seductive towards Penelope, and you can kind of like see through it. It's amazing to watch. I loved it. I really love when he does something like this.
Yeah, I mean, coward is a great word for him, and that he reminded me a bit of maybe Commodus in Gladiator, or the twins, although they're a bit more sadistic in Gladiator
Hmm.
too. But yeah, I love this horror character who's like who thinks he's the alpha or whatever, and then is a complete coward.
I think there's still more scheming and more intelligence to him than any of the Gladiator
Yes.
villains. So there's merit to this for sure.
That's a good point. I mean, his scheming, and he has also some ability in that, well, we see that he's the one that realizes that Penelope has been undoing the
Hmm.
what's this called, the
The
tap.
tapestry that she
Yeah,
was. Hmm.
exactly. Which is also a thing in the original story, but he's the one who finds out and calls her out on that, and then he sort of makes his argument on why he should be the one to marry her, which also makes sense from his point of view. But then the interesting detail is actually that we get to see that, well, he's actually in love with one of the servants, played by Mia Goth, I think.
Hmm. I mean,
And
again, Mia Goth
yeah,
for a
yeah,
1 minute screen time
yeah,
role, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah. So yeah, I think you can also see on his face that he's just enjoying having a blast playing this character. Yeah, and for me as well, it was super enjoyable to watch. I like it when he plays these, yeah, not protagonists, or maybe like villains or cowards,
Yeah,
or yeah,
kind of like antagonistic characters,
yeah,
or not, or kind of like grayish slash.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think he ever played like evil characters, but just not good characters.
exactly. Yeah, Odysseus arrives, and then first he disguises himself as Sinon, or goes by the name of Sinon, and as a beggar, and he meets Eumaeus, and well, I'll skip over the part where he rescues Telemachus from that temple. I think it was Athena's temple or whatever. But I wanted to get almost to the end. One small detail, maybe it's a bit kitschy, but that I really liked, is that when he arrives at the gates of the castle and his dog recognizes him. Well, I don't know. That made me a bit emotional, and it
The
worked for
dog
me. But
kills me. The dog is like, I would like to like strangle someone.
yeah,
Every time the dog is on the screen, I'm like, I cannot. So for sure, yeah, the dog is very emotional.
yeah, I heard Nolan talking in an interview about that, like our relationship to animals, and specific to dogs, and what that tells us about
Yeah, yeah.
characters.
But also I just think, this again is this very, I mean, I want to say cheap trick, but I mean, not maybe necessarily cheap, but it is a trick to kind of draw out emotion from the viewer. That's what we were talking about when we were talking about Hail Mary as well, right? There's a clear creative decision to creating an alien that is almost shaped like a dog. So, yeah.
I wanted to talk about the conversation between Penelope and Odysseus, and for me, the what happens after is a bit less
Hmm.
important. What do you think?
I agree. I think this is the most important thing, the most important scene in the movie.
Hmm.
This ties everything together, and it's almost like you were watching 3 hours of this movie, and now I will tell you what it was all about.
Yeah.
And it definitely ties everything together, and the messaging is that is what I mentioned in the beginning, is very much reminiscent of the messaging of Oppenheimer.
Oh, well, then we're on the same page, I guess.
Let's go.
You start.
Okay, I start. So it is a very pacifist message. And as we can see from what Nolan has been doing recently, this is clearly something that is important to him if he includes it in his two major films that seem to be kind of what he himself thinks of his as his magnum opus, right? Oppenheimer had a very clear pacifist message. This one is almost kind of wrapping it in different layers, but eventually this is what we come to as well. And we don't get to really see that or hear that from the perspective of the main character or the protagonist, the titular character, until the very end. And he again talks about Troy, and it almost reframes the whole experience and
Exactly. Yeah.
almost our whole experience having seen this now.
Hmm.
And the Zeus's law gets very much mentioned again and becomes this thread that ties everything together. And what I think also ties it together is what we see about Odysseus, again, almost like creating a myth of Odysseus through the stories, because Telemachus almost only knows his father exclusively as a myth, right? He never met him, he never knew him. And what we get to know in the very beginning is that when he went hunting, he did this trick where he would make his prey aware of himself.
Yeah, that's
And
the
it
strumming of the bow. Yeah, and that's in the soundtrack, and
exactly.
it's a basic. Isn't that also like a Zeus's law for me? That's Zeus's law as well.
I don't think it's, I mean, it doesn't get called that and it doesn't really get framed as Zeus's law, but it's
Hmm.
something that we get to see from, like, it's Odyssey's own philosophy in life that you kind of get a fighting chance
Hmm.
to whoever, you know? And even if he just went hunting, he did that. It was important to him to give a fighting chance to make his prey aware. So it was more of a kind of a challenge maybe, and it was not really a hunt anymore. But what they do in Troy is exactly only a hunt, right? They trick the people first of all by presenting them with a gift in form of the horse, right? The horse is dedicated to Athena. I mean, we have never really talked about Athena, but she is kind of an important character for Odysseus himself. And I think from what we get to see in the very end, where we get to see Zendaya not only as Athena, but also as possibly a different character in the movie, you kind of realize that maybe this is all again kind of this PTSD induced hallucinations, you know, and it's not really that clear cut. But in any case, what he talks about is that this violence that was done is very much in violation of Zeus's law because of how it was done. They infiltrated the house of, well, Troy, let's say, the house of the people, and they, yeah, slaughtered everyone. So this seems to be very much against his own values and who he perceived himself. So it basically just like creates a huge identity crisis for himself, and this is why he doesn't want to go home, and this is why he doesn't feel like he has the right to go home. Because if you are, I think there is some very wise words that he says that I can't quote now, but basically that he is now carrying this, this is he's a carrier of this kind of like virus, and wherever he goes he brings that with him. And this is why he doesn't want to go home, because he will bring it into his own home too. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
I think you pulled all the thoughts of out of my mind that I had, and almost yeah, gave them exactly as almost
i
the
did
exact
i
same.
did your job for you.
Yeah, I was just wanted to add a couple more details in. Well, the one thing is in that they change between him and Penelope, and I think Penelope says something along the lines, "Oh, I was afraid of the people coming from the sea who don't respect the laws of Zeus." And then I think it's actually Odysseus who says, "Well, actually, that's me."
Yeah,
And
this is, I am the people of the sea,
yeah,
basically. Yeah.
and basically what you said, that he reframes the whole story and how we've been perceiving it. That Odysseus the myth, but what he did, he's actually the Trojan horse wasn't a stroke of genius, but a stroke of, I guess, misfortune, or well, it what you said, that they
An
entered the
evil
city,
genius.
yeah, slaughtered everyone, and that it's like that I didn't think of. What you said is that it went against his own identity with the bow and that. And in reframing that, we also see the reframing visually, because I think the first scene with the bard, there is this shot of Matt Damon on the steps falling down and looking up. I think there was that one scene. And then when he tells the story, we have that scene again. But there are a couple of details added. Well, one of them I think is what you mentioned. After that, we see that I think it's a priestess played by Zendaya who gets well killed by the Greeks and the head falling down. So that's that reframing, and that's a very Nolan element. I think we talked about that in our last episode, that showing the same scene again from another perspective at another point of the story and adding a couple more things. Yeah, I think those two things I wanted to add, and you already said it better than I could have done, is that he didn't want to go home, right? So actually, his Odyssey is the purgatory is the right word, or his punishment on himself, and that's why I think when he's on Calypso's island, I think there's even a line on there that he actually wants to eat the lotus flower, and for me, I
Hmm.
interpreted that as okay, he wants to forget until he comes to terms with what he's done.
Hmm.
And I think that's also ties to with, well, Athena, who is sitting there with him when he's talking to Penelope, and we can see her vanish after that. And for me, actually, this is my interpretation, but I think it's it's actually not Athena what Zendaya represents, it's his guilt. And
Hmm.
that that's his point of acceptance
Hmm.
and getting rid of that guilt.
Yeah, I agree.
I also liked what you mentioned, that I don't know if we actually hear her called Athena, as Zendaya called Athena.
Not really. I think it's just like implied because of this
Yeah.
scene in the end. I was questioning it as well because, I just don't see how this messaging correlates with her being Athena in the first place. Because
Yep.
eventually, she is the goddess of war, the goddess of kind of
Wisdom, I think as well.
strategy, right? Well, not war technically, right? She's not
No, I think
really.
you're right. She also has an association with war, not direct.
She does
No,
have
Ares.
association with war, but Ares
Yeah,
is the god of
yeah,
war,
yeah.
right?
But Athena
Okay,
has some other association with war. I don't maybe battle, as she's the god of battle or something like that.
yeah, but in any case, definitely the goddess of kind of the strategy, right?
Hmm.
Wisdom, warfare, handicraft. This is what doesn't compute for me personally, because if she is a goddess of warfare, why is he, his messaging is not about that. His
Hmm.
messaging is actually very much against this.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it more represents the guilt than it represents the war.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, that I don't know if she's mentioned with by the name Athena in the movie, or if that's only from
Hmm.
like the trailers
Hmm.
and the marketing, because yeah, for me, well, for me, I like it what we also said before, that I preferred as my interpretation that there aren't any gods in the movie, and that
Hmm.
Athena is actually just this priestess that he saw getting killed, and that's what he remembers constantly, that guilt, that shame. He associates it with Athena because she was at that temple, and he also has the pendant from Penelope.
Hmm.
So yeah, all those elements come together, like you said, that final, almost final scene. Yeah, I love that message. Pacifistic. It's also optimistic because I think there's also some renewal mixed into there in the sense of that. Well, he says that okay, the sort of Bronze Age has fallen and now a new age starts, and at
Hmm.
some point my mistakes are going to be forgotten or not be relevant anymore.
Hmm.
Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but I liked also that message of renewal and optimism for the newer generations, and that's why in the end he decides to leave Ithaca, get exiled because, well, yeah, he wants a new start.
Um, this very much reminds me of Inception. First
Mm-hmm.
of all, those scenes in the hall, in the dining hall, remind me very much of the of this dream space where Saito, I think his name was living. So this kind of like, I mean, not in the visual sense, but in the kind of just the sense of the space, how it was and what it represented. It very much reminds me of that. And because it appears in the beginning and then it appears later on in the story, and this is exactly kind of mirroring how it appears also in the Odyssey, and also how the characters are speaking. They're all like, it's also quiet, and then people are close to each other, so it's a very different, it's different to how it is in the rest of the film. And there's almost like the sense of, some wisdom being transferred between people in the scene, just as it was there in Inception, I feel like. And what also reminds of Inception here for me is that the ending is not really that clear. I think you can understand it in different ways. So just like in Inception, you don't really know what happened in the end. You can make an interpretation of it, and just like also here in the Odyssey, you can interpret it as, ultimately death and him going on a different journey now and going away, and now with his wife, like being reunited with his wife. However you want to interpret it is, I think, going to be a valid interpretation.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not entirely sure why there's room for an interpretation, but maybe it's because the visuals not always match what we're being told. For me, an example of that is uh the all the stories, the fantastical elements of the story, like the Cyclops, what else? The giants, Charybdis, the monster.
Hmm.
You could, because those were told from a different perspective. For me, you could almost like leave those out or think like, okay, that's the myth, right? That's what people have been telling. What actually happened is we don't know. But I think maybe the reason why there is room for an interpretation is what we're seeing and what is told, or what's the myth. And here the same thing. Maybe here with the ending, I thought the same thing. Oh, maybe he actually died in that throne room because he had
Hmm.
many injuries.
Hmm.
I liked it that it's a bit that it's actually open to you how you want to view it. One question regarding Penelope and Odysseus, because I have to ask this because it's a small thing, but I was curious what you thought about it. Is what you did it? It's in the beginning of the movie, more or less. What did you think of the intimate scene between Penelope and Odysseus when he's about to leave and they are in their
Hmm.
chambers in their bedroom?
What do you mean? What did I think about it?
Yeah, like the intimacy. How that is portrayed.
I don't know. I didn't really think about it.
Well,
Maybe I agree
my
with you.
thought, I guess, because I was influenced from other movies, but my brain went like, well, how the setup was and so forth. Okay, now we're going to get a sex scene, but actually that didn't happen. And actually, for me, that made total sense in how Nolan is as a director, and there is intimacy in there, and like more like partnership,
Hmm.
and that's how I feel actually Well, I believe that's a bit personal in how he views his relationship with his wife. More like partnership, and there is a cut after that, and so the private things are private in a way.
Hmm.
That's how I view it. But that made sense to
Hmm.
me how
No,
he
yeah.
did that. I thought that I guess I was influenced from other Sword and Sandals movies where that would have been a choice, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. I don't think I was really expecting. To be fair, when I went to watch this movie, I wasn't expecting anything. I think I already mentioned it last time. I had no expectation to like it or not like it. I had no expectation as to what I'm gonna see. So this is the same thing. I didn't really expect anything in particular. And I think as far as sex scenes go, few and far between in Nolan movies. Actually,
mm,
none.
no, yeah.
So I that would be a first. And I don't think I would necessarily expect it in a Nolan film.
So should we get to final thoughts on how Nolan did with this Herculean, colossal,
Yes.
titanic
Now
task?
we can finally say our whole opinion, can we not?
Yes. Would you
You
want me
go
to start?
first,
Okay, sure. Yeah,
and you can at the end of it also share what you expected from my opinion.
I good. That's interesting. What I loved about this movie is just what we've been talking here in the last couple of minutes, that final message, and that there is a message in the movie, and it's optimistic. But I think I also enjoyed the ride, the trip, because, like I said, I enjoyed the aspect of um, remembering this particular story, but all the stuff around it that was in me somehow and that I grew up with. I also liked, we talked about some choices where Nolan brings his own perspective into it and maybe bit of a reinterpretation. But mostly what I'm grateful for, what I enjoyed is the images, especially filming on live locations. And I mentioned that, well, Nolan was influenced by Star Wars. And I mean, just for us to get to appreciate those places in nature. And I think world is such a beautiful place, and seeing those images, this also makes me want to just dive into that world and explore it more, even though it's a end-to-end story. I mean, these types of stories make you wonder, okay, or create a lore around them, like Star Wars. Why does Star Wars have so much lore? Because I think because it allows you to add more to that. And I think from the imagery that this is something that this movie transmitted to me. I think I didn't have, or maybe it will take time, and I did think a lot about the movie after I finished it in the moment. Maybe it didn't grab me as said. Probably my favorite one of his is still The Prestige. I had like a strong emotional connection. This one, I don't know. Maybe that will come. Maybe now I'm also older, so it's different. But I still really enjoyed it. And in regards to your opinion, I think here you just played around with me. I mean, I thought you didn't at the beginning was, well, she didn't like it, and well, maybe she liked it. No, I don't know. You just played me around like a fool, like
I
an
love
inch.
it.
So I'm curious still.
Now this is when I thought when I left the cinema, I thought I will not tell Michael anything at all. Because I was sure that you will have an opinion, and the opinion is not going to be even close to the truth. And I think it's also kind of like whenever we talk, I feel like a lot of times we have a completely opposite opinion. And so yeah, this was interesting. This was cool. My opinion is I loved it. I really loved
Wow.
it. It's really a great movie. And I was surprised myself at
Hmm.
how much I actually loved it. Of course, I must say, like the Inception is probably going to be my favorite Nolan film forever, but this is a very good candidate. This is was very, yeah, was very entertaining to watch. The journey, as you yourself said, you were taken on a journey with Odysseus. I think it was very enjoyable as a viewer. Of course, like there's a lot of challenges to overcome for the character, but um the film is very long and it doesn't even seem that long. The film is
No.
3 hours long, and
Hmm.
yet it's entertaining enough that you don't notice that time pass. I think that's great. And for it having the same message as Oppenheimer, when I watched Oppenheimer, I knew while I was watching it that I will probably not ever see it again because
Hmm.
this is not the type of movie that I would like to rewatch. I didn't connect to it emotionally enough to ever consider, oh, I would like to see it again. And I mean, to be fair, there were other films by Nolan that had the same fate. I have never seen Tenet. I mean, I've seen it once, but never again since. But this one, I can say that I would definitely like to rewatch it sometime, and I'm sure there is more to see on a second rewatch and more to notice because I mean the amount that you can notice on the first watch is astounding, and then if I'm sure that it has more to see. Special mention, I must
Hmm.
say I completely disagree with whatever people are saying online. I didn't even want to entertain the things that people were saying because I don't agree with a single thing. I don't agree with any casting questions, any like prop questions or like costumes. I mean, after all, it's a mythical story. It's not real life. Like demanding historical accuracy from a well, I mean a legend in a way, right?
Hmm.
It's really quite ridiculous to me. And as far as the messaging, I mean, of course, now we also find ourselves in a world that is very much at war wherever you
Hmm.
look. And now, even talking now to you about the message and about the scenes in Troy really just like brings tears to my eyes. I was
Yeah,
crying
same.
there.
Yeah. Mm.
So I think this was done really well. I loved how it all wrapped itself together with a bow in the
Mm.
very end. Yeah, so and again, back to the criticisms, or rather back to well, initially it started with criticisms, and I think it was very much drawing attention to the casting. I would like to say the casting was great as far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned. For me personally, Himesh Patel is his name, is the guy that played the second in command.
Hmm.
I was immersed with this guy the whole time. I was like, dude, he did a great job. This guy really, I was amazed. I really was so drawn to this character and watching him struggle through all of that and kind of wanting to be on his commander's side, but questioning him all the way. And you really almost like watch part of the movie from his perspective, I feel like. I think this was one of the best characters. And uh, to be honest, like everybody else, John Leguizamo, I love him. I also seeing him here. When I only saw in the beginning that he was gonna be in this movie, I was like, interesting choice because he's never been
Hmm.
in a
Yeah.
Nolan movie before, and he's also kind of a more he played a lot of comedic roles as well. Not only, of course, but I love him as an actor. Um, and I mean, just about everybody else. But those two, who else? Who else would I mention as an honorable mention? Probably Robert Pattinson, because
Yeah.
like I love him when he plays such roles.
I mean, for
Yeah.
me, as well as, I mean, Robert Pattinson for sure, but also I think Tom Holland. I mean, and the
Hmm.
younger actors are great, and Tom Holland especially plays it beautifully. That sort of naive,
Hmm.
young prince at the beginning, and we see some development
Hmm.
throughout. So he was well cast in this and does a great job. And I hope, or it looks to me like I hope Nolan does more job with these younger actors, and at least from what the message of the movie is, I would expect him to. but yeah, the message is beautiful, and
Hmm.
I'm glad that Nolan. I think that's something that he learned throughout the years, but with Oppenheimer in particular, is that tuning down his brainy aspects, tuning that down a bit. So here, the elements that he usually plays around with are not so much in the forefront, and
Hmm.
they almost disappear, but they're still there, and but they still service the story. So I'm really glad that he did that, and I agree with you that I, well, I already said it basically that I would rewatch this.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would rewatch this because there's so many things and to
Yeah.
discover still.
Yeah. Shout out to the hell scene though, for real.
It's a great one.
This was very impressive to me. Again, like just the simplicity of it. Maybe this ties also to what you're saying, that he toned down the braininess and just, you make it simple in a way, like in certain terms, you make it simpler and it still hits home, it still gets there for the viewer. You don't have to over explain. And this was, I think, the mistake that was done in The Tenant, that it would always explain and explain again and explain again, like, in case you didn't get it, this is how it works. And here, this all kind of falls away, and we're not really even getting the message, the main message of the story, until the very end, right? So there's no preface to it almost. But yeah, I think this does good service to the viewership.
Yeah, and the message being also, I think, like, I mean, it spoke to me, and I think it's politically relevant and important, and yeah, I'm glad that it's being said and it's brave. I really, what I really wanted to do is discuss this movie with you. I couldn't wait to
See,
discuss it with you.
you know what I'm glad about? That I got to surprise you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, that was great. Yeah. I think I got all the things out of my chest. Oh, I think this might be the first time that I talked about everything that I wanted to talk about, which I
Oh,
always tend to
nice.
forget something. Probably
Well,
still
we
have some
did
minor
talk for a
details.
long time now.
Yes. Anyway, those were our thoughts on the Odyssey. And I picked a quote here for the end.
Hmm.
And I think I couldn't have picked a better quote in
Ooh.
hindsight. The quote is, I've seen girls destroy men without lifting a finger.
Okay, I'm intrigued where this is from.
Well, can you guess who
I
said
mean, it
this?
has to be Nicolas Cage.
Of course, yes.
You already told me that. But I don't know which movie.
I
Wait, give
tried to
me a hint. Give me a hint.
well, I tried to find a sword and sandals movie with Nicolas Cage.
Oh, I don't know any of
But
those.
think more medieval. This is more medieval and maybe fantastical.
Nicolas Cage in a medieval
Yeah.
movie? This is the weirdest thing I've ever. To
Yes.
be fair, we did talk about a possible movie where he plays a talking fly that joins a podcast. This is not the weirdest thing. The weirdest thing is is a medieval movie with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, medieval. I haven't seen this one. Medieval, fantastical, and it's him on the poster.
Okay, let me see. Don't spoil it. Nicolas Cage filmography. I have to see it. It's him on the poster. Oh, maybe no.
Which one?
Can it be from there? Maybe it's wait. Okay, I have an idea, but I
Okay,
think I might be. Okay, I have two ideas,
go ahead.
but I'm not sure about either.
Hmm.
You tell me.
No, you tell me.
I'm thinking between Sorcerer's Apprentice and
Hmm.
Season of the Witch.
It's Season of the Witch.
Okay. Because Season of the Witch also makes sense because it's like,
Yes.
in terms of the quote, it also makes sense for the movie.
Yeah, yeah. But this is exact. This wraps perfectly how you've played with me,
Yes.
and great talking about this movie. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and Catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.